Engaging students and families in the transition process. Our learning objectives for this section include establish a foundation for engaging students and families in the transition process, review strategies for engagement, and review the long-term impact of student and family engagement. High leverage practices in the area of collaboration and instruction are important to special education. Collaboration practices include organize and facilitate effective meetings with professionals and families, and collaborate with families to support learning and secure needed services. High leverage practices in instruction include identify and prioritize long and short-term goals, and use strategies to promote active student engagement. Wouldn't it be wonderful to know that the services we are providing to youth with IEPs positively impacts their lives after they leave high school? Having a magic ball to gaze into to see what works and what doesn't work would make our lives easier. But what if we have access to research-based activities that are shown to have a positive impact on students as they leave high school by increasing the chance that they have competitive employment, obtain post-high school education, and have higher independent living outcomes? We are going to dive into the predictors that pertain to family involvement and family expectations so that by increasing your knowledge and resources pertaining to these predictors, you can impact the lives of the students you serve. Each of our students with a disability have post-school goals in the area of education and employment, and many, TIG may argue for nearly all, also have goals in the area of independent living. But what are the predictors of achieving these goals after leaving high school? NTACT has conducted research and looked at the research studies that have certain skills, or we call them predictors, that correlate with higher outcomes in the areas of education, employment, and independent living. So looking at this list, we note that parent expectations and youth autonomy decision-making impacts are predictors of post-high school success in the areas of education and employment. Furthermore, parental or family involvement is also a predictor of employment outcomes. Notice which predictors impact all three goal areas. This would include inclusion, work experience, self-care, independent living, and parent-family expectations. The predictor of family engagement means that parents, families, guardians are active and knowledgeable participants in all aspects of transition planning. This includes decision-making, providing support, attending meetings, and advocating for their child. We want families, beginning when their child is young, to hold expectations that their child will attend a post-secondary education institution and be competitively employed in the community. How do we facilitate increased family involvement and engagement? We want family members and students to have the ability, knowledge, and opportunity to participate in IEP meetings and the desire to share information with schools on their child's strengths, interests, and weaknesses, because they know their child better than anyone else. Parents and other family members participating in early conversations on what life could be like for their child with the bar raised high is desired, along with continued discussion and learning about their child's disability and its impact on their learning and accommodations that are needed to succeed. We need to reflect on our practices to determine if we are constructing barriers that prevent or limit these responsibilities. So teacher responsibilities. Begin early. Don't wait until age 14. Have high expectations for all of your students. Use family-friendly language, no teacher jargon. Provide multiple options for involvement, such as pre-IEP planning input and flexible IEP meeting times, and alternate ways to obtain input in the transition planning process. Establish a welcoming atmosphere in the school by developing a system of ongoing communication and interaction. Provide information and resources to parents through a variety of means. This could include written, face-to-face, community-based trainings, and do this at each stage of the transition planning process, such as the transition from middle to high school, the age of majority, and graduation. Value families as active participants in the IEP PTP process. Staff can share transition assessment results with parents so that parents can use the information to provide training for their child in the home and in the community and assist with identifying natural supports. Connect families with transition resources and agencies in the community. Link parents with those types of support networks. Support time during the meetings for questions and clarification, and then ensure that you're making a connection to the academic and career planning process during the PTP discussion. We've included information on a director's responsibilities. As you're looking at districts, you may want to inquire as to the philosophy of transition in the district that you are working, because districts can directly impact family engagement and parental expectations. How do they do this? Well, they can develop a culture supporting transition planning. Is transition planning held to the same standard as students' involvement in academics? Some directors encourage long-term planning with IEP teams. They start their IEPs with the PTP and then work backwards. Is DVR allowed time in the building? Do staff have time to leave the building to participate in their county community on transition, or CCOT? This is extremely important so that staff have access to information on a timely basis from DVR and others involved with transition planning, and that they develop positive relationships with individuals from these agencies. Does the district collect data through the Indicator 14 survey? By collecting data, the district can determine if changes in the district's transition practices is having a positive impact on student outcomes. And then lastly, if the district has conducted the survey and qualifies for transition incentive grant dollars, are those dollars spent on increased transition services? So why do these responsibilities exist? Research shows students and parents who are engaged in the transition process are more likely to be employed, they're able to set achievable goals for themselves, and ultimately have positive post-school outcomes. Note that some of the research cited on this slide may seem a bit outdated, but I think this represents that what we have known, what is best practice for a while, but what we do think of as practices as improving outcomes. So student invitation. The purpose of inviting the student to the IEP meeting is to allow the student to participate fully in the development of his or her transition plan. An effort should be made to schedule the meeting at a time that the student is able to attend. The invitation to the student to attend his or her IEP meeting should be extended well in advance of the meeting and must be extended prior to the IEP team meeting. The invitation may be either written or verbal. Steps should be taken to prepare the student to participate in the IEP meeting prior to the meeting. This would include helping the student to understand the purpose and components of the transition plan. Consideration should be given to assigning the student specific tasks that he or she might carry out at the IEP meeting. This could include communicating his or her interests and goals and helping the student practice these tasks in advance of the meeting. An attainable long-term goal would be to have the student self-direct his or her IEP meeting. There are many family engagement resources for you to utilize. DPI has a website titled Family and Community Engagement specifically to share resources on this topic. The Wisconsin Statewide Parent Educator Initiative is another resource that can assist families and school staff in developing strong working relationships. Also, do not forget the Learn More buttons. These are located on the pages of the PTP application and can be used to gain insight into the procedure requirements and best practice for each of these sections of the PTP. This button on partnerships offers suggestions on why increasing family engagement matters. Now that we have established a foundation of why student and family engagement is important in transition and what that looks like from the family, teacher, and director lens, let's spend some time digging deeper into strategies to foster engagement for students and families. First, we have the Wisconsin Transition app. This is designed to help Wisconsin students and family members participate in the transition planning process. The app helps students give input into the requirements of the state of Wisconsin and IDEA post-secondary transition plan. The app can be found in any of the app stores. It is free, but it can also be found online at witransition.com. Another strategy and opportunity for engagement is through fostering the connections between academic and career planning and the PTP. Academic and career planning is a state requirement for students beginning in 6th grade. Academic career planning, or ACP, is intended to equip students and their families with the tools necessary to make more informed choices about post-secondary education, training, and careers for life after high school. It is part of DPI's overall vision for every student to graduate high school academically, socially, emotionally, and life ready. Post-secondary transition planning, or the PTP, is required by both state and federal law and begins in Wisconsin at the age of 14. These two programs together, and in fact a robust ACP program, can fulfill many pre-employment transition services in the PTP. A final strategy for engagement is interagency collaboration. To foster these connections, it may be helpful to develop practices for inviting outside agencies to IEP meetings. A great way to do this is to get consent from the families at the beginning of the year so that you have plenty of time to notify the agency members of the IEP meeting. Also, agencies can schedule regular office hours, such as having DVR come into the school and work with students on school grounds. And then also work to increase knowledge of staff members outside of the special ed department of the services and resources available to students with disabilities and their families. The Transition Action Guide is a good foundational resource to describe what this collaboration looks like when it is effective. DVR is a huge part of effective transition planning and engagement. Some tips for collaborating with DVR and other agencies include prioritizing office hours for transition staff, having transition staff work with all open DVR cases, and then utilizing those DVR office hours for IEPs and transition team meetings. Specifically, if DVR and your transition staff keep those blocks of time marked off together. And here's a list of resources that have been used and references used in this section.